All right, everybody, welcome to the TinkerTribe podcast. I'm your host, Greg Dowd, and tonight I am joined by my recent buddy, Tim, who I met at the Self Reliance Festival. And tonight we're going to get to know Tim and what his story is and kind of how he ended up at the Self Reliance Festival. He's got a very interesting story. Um, well, thank you for joining me. First off, tonight, thank you for being here, Tim.
Oh yeah, man. Happy to be here.
Excellent, man. So yeah, we got to having a good conversation at the Self Reliance Festival. I was going to the gas station to buy another pack of smokes, and
Oh, that's what you were doing.
yeah, I was buying another pack of smokes. I think probably an energy drink or something like that, and met you over there, and then as we were walking, got to talking to you, and you kind of blew me away with your story, man. It was very, very interesting. So yeah, tell people a little bit about yourself. I guess I want to start off, because I know about your story is that like you kind of started off in college, and I guess like a lot of us are like kind of really don't know what we really want to do, but we're all told, hey, you got to go to college. So yeah, maybe start there, like how you kind of went into getting into a field that would kind of lend itself towards some other stuff that you would do later.
Yeah. Let me just ask you a question real quick. Is this a cuss-free show?
No, no.
Okay. It shouldn't
Yeah.
be. It shouldn't be an issue, but I figured I'd ask before I get rolling. But yeah, man. So I grew up in Illinois, um, and I'll kind of break down my path. There's sort of there will be a split in the road at some point because I really like talking about just kind of my life decisions and the path that I've been on, but it sort of parallels with like my liberty path too.
Okay.
So I'm not quite exactly sure how those two things are going to dovetail together, but
We'll find
um,
it. We'll find a segue.
yeah, we'll find that path. But yeah, I grew up in Illinois, and I kind of fast forward because my childhood wasn't anything notable, but we I wanted to be a police officer my whole life. Like that was my plan from as far back as I can remember, and not for like any good reasons. Basically, like none of the reasons that you would want somebody that's going to be a police officer to be a police officer. So um, probably just because I like grew up watching cops on television. And I was
And
like,
you're like,
damn,
these guys are fighting the bad guys.
yeah, I was like, dude, that looks fun. I get to drive around all day and like have a gun. That looks sweet. So I don't know. And I went through a bunch of stuff too. Like I wanted to join the Marines when I was 16 or 17. I got all big into that.
Oh
And
wow.
one thing I'll lay out there too is that I have a hyper obsessive personality. So like always have everything that I get into or I get passionate about, like I get like laser focused on it. So even all the way back then, and wanted to join the Marines, but of course I was 17, so I couldn't do it myself because I wasn't an adult. And so, but still went through the process. I remember I was like working out with those guys. I was taking their tests, and my mom was supportive, and she always has been. My mom's like supportive to a fault, even like when she maybe shouldn't have. So I can remember like my mom was like, I support you. You can do what you want. My parents were and are divorced, so then I go over to my dad's house and I talked to him about it, and he was like, absolutely not. You're definitely not going to do that. I think what I remember him saying, and it was a long time ago. I'm 35 now, so back when I was 17, he was like, somebody else's son can go over there and do that. Right. And so, yeah, what year would that have been? That would have been like 2006, I guess. 2006, 2007.
Mm.
Just to put things in a bit of a perspective of world events and stuff that was going on.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have been the most safe time to join the military, but my dad wouldn't do it. He wouldn't sign the paperwork. And it just didn't work out for me. So I kind of went about my way and had kind of held with me that I wanted to be a police officer. So I was looking at colleges, and like you had just said, I was definitely pumped into the path of like, you're going to go to high school, and then you're going to take the ACT, and then you're going to go to college, and that's what you're going to do, right? Like that was my option.
Yeah, that's like
Um,
everybody that kind of, you know,
mhm.
is in this era is they're like, you got to go to college.
Yeah, most people, man, and especially like the community I grew up in the area in northern Illinois that I grew up in. That's just what people did. So I decided on a school that had a really good law enforcement program, and it happened to be the same school that both of my parents had gone to and met when they were in college there and everything. So it just kind of made sense. It was like a family school kind of vibe. Um, but as a lot of the people listening to this, and you might know, I'm not sure if you went to university or not, but when you go to university,
Yeah, I
you
did.
get
Yeah.
you get invited to like a incoming freshman orientation, right?
Yep.
And they invite all the people that are going to come join that school in the fall, and it's all the incoming freshmen. And for us, at least, we got to like sleep in the dorms. You know, you got like hooked up with another incoming freshman. You guys like lived in the dorm together for 2 days or whatever it was, and you walk around campus and do different things. And it was a small state school. I'm pretty sure there were probably like 15,000 kids that went to the school in total, so nothing crazy. But they did this one day where all the incoming freshmen got into this big auditorium building, and so we're all sitting in this auditorium, and they're going through their stuff, and they start sort of segmenting the people by their prospective majors, you know, and they're like, okay, all the education majors, like everybody stand up, and you're going to follow this lady over into this other wing of the room or whatever. And so all the education folks stand up, which is another good chunk of people at that school, a lot of education folk. And then they're like, okay, all the law enforcement students stand up and follow this guy wearing military garb and follow him like into that room. And I swear to God, like half of the kids stood up. Like everybody stood up. And they all went and followed that guy. And we all like kind of shuffled our way into this room. I can just remember they didn't allow the parents into that room and for that meeting. So it was all the kids, kind of all the law enforcement kids get funneled into this room. You look in the front and you have like, you know, whatever it is, all the administrators and the higher ups in that department at that school standing up there. A lot of them were like wearing police uniforms or military uniforms. They shut the doors behind us. Our parents are like out in the hall out back. And I didn't get within 30 seconds of that meeting before I had like this weird, like, I don't even remember. It was a while ago, but something came over me and I was like, I got to get out of here. Like, I can't do this. I wish I could tell you guys like what it was that gave me that, but it was probably just a combination of like looking to my right and left and like seeing who these kids were and what they looked like, looking in front of me and seeing the military type folk up there. And at this point was not liberty minded at all.
Yeah.
Had not reached that yet. I'm like 2 years from getting there at this point. So, but even then I was like, don't want to be a cop, which again, in perspective, for the first 18 years of my life, that's all I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was sure of it. Like of course that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to law enforcement school. I'm going to be a cop. I'm going to be a detective. I'm going to go into DA, whatever I want to do. But I literally got up and remember leaving that thing and walking out the back door and having to like ask some guy to open the door for me because I wanted to leave. I was like, please let me go. Like, let me get out of this room. And I get out there and you got all the parents of all the kids sitting out in this other area. And I had to like find my mom. And of course she's sitting on a bench, like reading a book, whatever she's doing. And she happened to be handed out a pamphlet that day that had all the list of majors on it. If you wanted to major in something, it gave you all the options. And I remember going up to her, head was like down looking at a book. And I was like, Mom. And she's like, what are you doing out here? I was like, I don't want to do that. And like I said, super supportive. So she just looked up at me and she said, okay, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, but let's figure it out. So she like hands me the paper and I'm like looking through the paper and you know, there's like 100 options or something. I'm like, what the heck am I gonna, I don't know. But I keep scrolling and I see one that says Recreation, Parks, and Tourism Administration.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, I was like, that's the one. Right. And I was like, I'll try to get paid to play. That sounds great.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, okay, well, now we got to find out where those kids went, you know? So we had to like ask some questions. We find out the Parks and Recreation kids are in the library on the 3rd floor in a study room. I was like, oh, okay. So we got to cross the street, go to the library, go up to the study room, and there's literally like 4 kids in the room.
Yeah.
And they're like in one of those like glass walled off rooms, but I could tell even before I got in that door, just by looking at them, I was like, that's my tribe right there. Like for sure I just avoided something big, and I've landed on something great. So I walked in there. The rest is history from there, but all those kids are like still friends with me. I still talk to those kids. Like we still go camping and we do outdoorsy shit together. So
wow.
So ended up doing that, and that experience was great for me. Like the Parks and Recreation at that school, that program was fantastic. Awesome teachers, really down to earth people in general. I think it has a natural filter built into it that only certain types of people are going to be involved in like outdoor wilderness and that type of a thing. So you just land on those types of people. But we're talking like, you know, I'm getting college credit to go backpacking for a week.
Really?
Or I'm getting college credit to go fly fishing for a week, or we're doing sea kayaking this semester or whatever. Because I decided to do what we called RPTA, Recreation Parks and Tourism Administration, you could select sort of which focus you wanted. And you could do like hotel management, resort management, therapeutic recreation was a popular one. And I chose outdoor leadership. And so that allowed me to go on those trips. And basically those trips were like leadership school. So you're not just getting guided around the Ozarks with a backpack. You're like
leading people in the Ozarks.
Yeah. Every day a different student leads the day, right? You're setting up the route. You're in charge of orienteering yourselves, waking up before everybody to get everything in order, cooking food for everybody, you know, establishing a plan and then sitting everybody down after breakfast or during breakfast and laying out all the maps and talking about where you're going to go and how you're going to get there and all that kind of stuff. So,
wow,
super cool experience, you know? And, yeah, so that was standard kind of 4-year degree. Where do you want to go from here though, dude? Cause like, this is kind of where it splits and my Liberty thing starts. So,
yeah, I mean, like you got that degree, and then you know what came next? Was it like did you have that kind of immediately start doing some kind of job where you were leading guided trips, or you know where did it go after you got out of college, I guess?
Yeah, so like I said, spent just the 4 years. I ended up, and we'll get back to this point, but I got in trouble in college and happened to get arrested, and I was paying for all my own stuff, so I had to drop out. I had to go back home, move back in with my mom, get a job, take some classes at community school, get my life in order, and resurrect myself. And I ended up making it back to that university after that semester or after a year or something, can't remember, and continuing on that path. But my program, we had to do an internship after you graduated.
Okay.
And it didn't matter what it was. You could do anything. And I somehow came across through a friend in the program that you could do sea kayaking in Norway. And I was like, oh yeah, let's do that. And so he like hooked me up with that contact. I reached out, I got that job. So me and like one of my best friends from college both got that job. So we both like flew out to Norway together, spent the summer out there guiding sea kayaking trips. Just having like a great time, dude. That summer was awesome. That summer was like one of the best summers of my life for sure.
Wow.
Had so much fun, guided a bunch of cool trips, met and like fell in love with this Swedish girl that also worked in the town.
Wow.
And like fell so hard that I was like, I'm moving to Sweden.
I'm moving to Europe.
I was converted, dude. I was like, I'm going to be an expatriate. I'm about to leave the U.S. So literally that's what I did though. I like fell in love with her, the summer ended. There was the work season ended, and she, I can't remember logistically how this played out, but like she went back to Sweden, spoke with her folks. I went back to Chicago area, hung out with my mom, and then my girlfriend at the time flew to Chicago and like stayed in my mom's house with me for like a month.
Wow.
And during that month, I had to break the news to my mom that I was like packing up and moving back to Sweden. I was like, when my girlfriend travels back, I'm going with her. And I'm going with her to like live. I'm not just like gonna go vacation. I was like, I'm getting my residence permit, getting a work visa. I'm learning the language and all that stuff.
Wow.
So, and again, super supportive. So I walk downstairs. My mom's like eating popcorn on the couch in her PJs. And I'm like, Mom, I'm moving to Sweden. And she just like immediately cries, immediately breaks down.
Oh man.
Right. But she's like, I support you. And I was like, oh, thanks, Mom. And then I had to go over to my dad's like the next day, tell him again, same sort of thing. And my dad looks at me and goes, no, you're not. That's absolutely the worst idea right now. Don't do that. And, whatever. I'm like rebellious, I guess, at that time. I'm like, no, that's what I'm going to do. Like the fact that you said no makes me want to do it more. I might have backed out, but since you said no, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. And then I went there. That didn't work out, man, obviously. I'm in Tennessee now. But I tried that out for 6 or 7 months and just got to the point where like I had no money and the relationship wasn't working out and I was young and I didn't want to go on welfare in Sweden.
Yeah.
sounds not a great plan. So I remember being in Sweden, like getting a job here in the States doing kayak expeditions. And I was like, I told him, I was like, I'm going to go back home. This isn't working out. I'm going to go back home and do this job. So that's what I did. Came back to the States, was guiding kayaking expeditions on Lake Superior.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, it was awesome. And it's, dude, the area up there, it was a town called Bayfield, Wisconsin.
Oh, and over on the Wisconsin side.
Yep. Southwest portion of Lake Superior. There is a 12-island archipelago called the Apostle Islands that very few people here in the States know about, but it is a hidden gem.
Oh, wow.
It is beautiful. It is awesome. It's a state it's public land. There's nothing out on those islands anymore. Once upon a time, there were little towns and villages and stuff, but now it's just like a recreation type of thing. So I did that for a couple of years. And it's a summer gig though, right? Like you can't kayak when it gets cold. So at this point, I'm like a couple of years into living the seasonal life where you're working one job in the summer and then you're working a different job in the winter and you're kind of floating back and forth. And I didn't have anything to do that winter coming up. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do? But I'm a kayak guide. So I'm like, those are the folks I'm interacting with, other guides. Those are my friends. And I remember being at a bar in Bayfield and sitting down at the bar with my buddy Byron at the time. And I was like, Byron, what do you do in this wintertime to make money? And he's like, oh, I go up to Ely, Minnesota, and I do dog mushing tours. And I remember looking at him and be like, you do what? Didn't even know. What wasn't even a paradigm. Like it didn't exist in my mind. It wasn't that I like heard of it and just like poo-pooed the idea and just like put it in the back of my file cabinet. It was like, it didn't exist. I was like, you do what with dogs at this point? That like, no way. There's no way you do that. And for anybody that doesn't understand, dog mushing is like, you have a team of Alaskan or Siberian Huskies and they're all stringed out in a row in front of your dog sled and you're traveling the wilderness. So when he sort of broke it down for me out, again, hyper like laser focus, obsessive disorder that I have or whatever, I was like, that's for sure what I'm going to do. And had no experience, was able to find on the interwebs like different job opportunities or people that needed help training their sled dogs up in Alaska. And then there's other places down here in the South, in the lower 48, I should say, that do it too. But I found someone in Alaska that needed help training her Iditarod team, which is like a big 1,000-mile dog sled race that happens up there every year. And I signed on with her. Didn't know her. She seemed nice. We communicated on the interwebs, and I was like, sure, I'll go up there. Bought a one-way ticket to the like middle of nowhere, Alaska, and flew up there and gave it a try. And yeah, I can't remember if you had already kind of noted on this, but it was for me at that time just like I was just going to go up for the year or for the winter.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just going to go try it. I'm going to kayak next summer. I just want to go up and have this winter thing. And, I was wildernessy. So I went and tried it and absolutely loved it. I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm ready to risk it all, man. Let's go for it. And which is weird too, because that first year with that lady, not going to say her name, but she was a bitch, man. Like she was a terrible, bad human. But there were so many other things about the lifestyle and the experience that I fell in love with, and I was like, this is awesome. So
you were like with her, like staying at her place or whatever, and just like learning everything there was to learn about how to do this.
Yeah. So anybody that's interested and wants to become a dog musher, the way it works is all these poor, dirty dog mushers up in Alaska who own 30 to 150 dogs operate usually very remote homesteads, and they rely on free labor to take care of most of the grunt work and a lot of the training of dogs that they don't want to have to focus on and stuff like that. So I basically found one of those. You trade your time and your labor for room and board.
Right.
In the best case scenario.
Yeah.
So especially if you're starting out, if you've never done it before, you're not getting paid anything. You're getting a place to sleep and some food. And depending on what kennel you go with or what musher, those qualities of those two things are going to be different. So,
right.
But I basically moved on to her like remote homestead with just her. Like she had a husband, but he was kind of weird and like not there all the time. And it was just really intimate work with just me and her with these dogs all the time. And that winter was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Like emotionally, physically, spiritually, across the board, just like ran me ragged. You're working for time doesn't exist, man. Like it's a lifestyle. It's not a job. So it's like, it doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m, dude. If dog's barking out there, you got to go handle something.
Yeah.
Or if you're training elite athletes, that's what these dogs are. So if your training schedule means you get up at 3 a.m. to run them in the middle of the night, that's what you do. So like, it was just really difficult. And then stack that on top of the fact that this lady sucked. I still have, like, I keep all my journals and stuff, and I still have this journal that I look at sometimes. It was from that time. And I look back and I was counting down the days in the corner of my journal pages for when I could leave. And I kid you not, I had like something ridiculous, like 200 days till I can leave or something.
What, did you sign a contract or something? Or did you just like, I'm doing this for this amount of time and I'm sticking to that?
I'm stubborn. And the other thing was I pretty quickly, when I got up there, probably quicker than I realized she sucked, I pretty quickly realized I loved it and that I wanted to be there and I wanted to do this. And I knew how important the community aspect of Alaska and dog mushing is. And everybody knows everybody. So like everybody in the dog mushing community up there, they know each other. They know their ex-wife and why they broke up and all the weird stories and stuff. So I just knew that if I screwed that up with her, I wouldn't have an opportunity going forward. And so I did a really good, she is probably not going to see this, hopefully, but she has no idea I feel this way. I was really able to just hold my tongue and yes, ma'am, and get the job done and just do the work that I needed to do because I needed that reference.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to move on from there. So, and I did. And I got my first race experience under her with her puppy team. And she had a relatively small kennel, like 30 dogs, 26 dogs or something.
Yeah.
But after that season, I knew that I was like, okay, I just had this tough experience this year. If I'm coming back, which I wanted to, I want to like really do it. I don't want to
Right.
like come back to a kennel like this. Like I want to go work and learn from someone that's like winning the race and that's like really doing things right and has all their stuff dialed in.
Yeah.
And so I, narrowed down a couple dog mushers or a couple kennels I was interested in. And this lady I had worked for the first year gave me a fantastic reference and actually reached out to that person for me preemptively and was like, hey, I have a dog handler. He's the shit. He works really hard. You want to hire this guy? And the kennel I decided on was uniquely remote and also very successful in the race scene, but like extremely remote even by Alaskan standards. So, and
So
then
you're
I moved
talking
up,
like out in the bush somewhere, something like that.
dude. Yeah, I'm talking like you leave Fairbanks, which geographically is in the heart of the state. It's right in the middle.
Yeah.
You leave Fairbanks, you leave the last gas station before you travel north, which was called Hilltop. You fill up your truck and you drive 6 hours on like not great roads and windy roads and sketchy shit, dude. And
Yeah.
then you park your car like on a pull off somewhere, and then you take a half-hour snow machine ride to get to the homestead. And there aren't,
Dang.
and there aren't. I mean, the next town over was like 30 miles, I think, and I think they had a community of like probably 20 people that were there all the time, like all year long.
Wow.
So yeah, really remote. And I ended up working for him and at his kennel for a couple years, 3-4 years, I think.
Wow.
And did all my qualifying races because I wanted to like go do the big Iditarod race
Yeah.
and work with him. A million stories. I mean, this whole episode could be on my experience at that kennel, dude. It was wild,
Wow.
super crazy stuff. And especially for me, like like a kid that grew up in the suburbs of Chicago.
That's what I was gonna ask. Is a lot of these Alaskans are like pretty rugged, individualist type people, and was like that kind of the experience you had with the culture up there? Like, did they accept you because of your work ethic? Like, how did all that go?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was probably that. I think people probably you go through like a bit of a informal interview process, I guess, for like a lack of a better way to put it. But they have these terms up there in Alaska to describe people that are new or trying Alaska on for size. And so if you're new, if you're like green, you're called a chichaco. And if you're an old timer, you've been there a while, they call you a sourdough. And the reason they call you a sourdough is because the old timers up there always kept a little sourdough culture in their pocket so they didn't starve to death.
Huh.
So yeah, you go through a process, but after you've sort of proven yourself, you've been up there for a season or two. If people come around, the culture is super unique, man. It's like you said, a bunch of just individualist type people, a lot of isolated folks, not necessarily people that are super outgoing or social or whatever, but
You gotta
yeah,
be tough, man. You gotta be tough to live up there.
yeah, and especially to do it all year long, and to do it, seasonally like I did, just go through the winters, which are crazy, and then go through the summers, which are also super crazy and hard work, and to be up there and you just naturally get certain experiences by being there. Like I like to say that if you've spent a winter in Alaska, you've either hit a moose with your car or you've almost hit a moose with your car. You've probably had a moose charge your dog team at least once. So there's, and there's a million other little anecdotes like that if you've been up there for at least a season, you're going to experience. So, yeah.
Wow. So did you kind of like being the dog sledder, like did you get to make it to do like the Iditarod thing? And
Yeah.
then
I ran it in 2018.
wow.
Um, and, and so you have it, that's the big race for folks that don't know. That's 1,000 miles,
A
through
thousand
the
miles.
1,000 miles through the wilderness.
Wow.
It takes the people that win that race, I think now, it takes them like 8 or 9 days to finish.
Holy
It
crap.
took me 12 and a half. It takes like the people in the far back at the worst years and the worst seasons when the weather is freaking crazy that week or two. It takes them like 15 to 20 days.
Wow.
So, and you have to qualify, right? Like they don't just let any random person show up to Alaska
Not
with
just all the dog sledders in Alaska can go do the
no,
Iditarod race.
no. You have to run a series of what we called mid-distance races, which were really 300 miles, which takes you the whole weekend basically. But you got to do a number of those, and you have to do them in good fashion. Like you don't even have to win; you just got to finish, and then that race counts as one of your qualifiers. But your dogs have to be healthy and in good shape when you finish. You have to be healthy and in good shape when you finish, and very importantly, you have to have a good attitude at the end of the race.
Mm.
Which, if you don't live in that world, maybe that doesn't make sense. But when you're sleep deprived for 3 days, and I mean like you've slept maybe an hour and a half, and
Over 3 days.
you've done it outside, like it's very cold a lot of the times. So that stuff eats at you, and if you're not used to it, man, like your attitude degrades tremendously. I have a side story if we need to if we're freaking starving for topics tonight, where I screwed that up in one of the races I did. I had a like a blow up and I freaked out and it was a bad situation.
Oh wow.
I learned from that tremendously, but yeah, you have to do that, and then you do that a number of times. I think for me that year it was like 3 or 4 that you can accumulate over the years. Like you can run different races over different years to qualify for Iditarod. So a lot of people ask me, "Oh, how long does it take to train for the Iditarod?" And my answer is always like, "It took me 6 years."
Wow.
Like it took me a long time to do it because you got to go through all the different processes.
Wow.
But yeah, got to it, ran it in 2018. It was incredible. It was like incredible, and that's not just like for granted. I really thought going into it I would hate it. You sort
Yeah.
of like you sort of accept certain things in that lifestyle and living in Alaska that like you embrace the suck. And
Yeah.
there are like certain things that you just like know are gonna suck, but like you do them anyway. And I
Yeah.
really thought I did, or I was gonna be one of those. Like I was gonna get to the end and hate it, and
Yeah.
how tired am I gonna be? Yeah, I can stay up for 3 days. I've done it 3 or 4 times now, but can I stay up for 3 days in a row, 3 times in a row, or 4 times in a row, stacked on top of each other?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'll die. Like, who knows what's gonna happen? You know? So, but I
Whoa.
made it, and it was incredible. It was the whole experience. That's a whole freaking show on itself. That race. It
Yeah.
was and I documented the whole thing, and I was able to like I had a whole write up of every little chapter of the race and all
Wow.
the people I met and the experiences I had along the way. And yeah, it was great, man. It's expensive though. You don't do that lifestyle for money.
Yeah.
It's a passion project. I mean, I think I spent at least $20,000 out of pocket just to be able to go do that race. So
Wow.
you gotta be super committed and super into it,
Yeah.
and don't regret it at all. It was
I
fantastic.
My God, I bet you like learned a lot about who you are as an individual and like just putting yourself through that struggle. And
Yeah, you have to, man. Like that. I don't know how anybody else ever does it, but like I grow in my discomfort zones. So, and I don't know how much of that I was before I went to Alaska, but by the time I left Alaska, I had
probably little things seem very or people things that people stress about is like that's a super trivial thing to you, I guess.
yeah, I was just telling a friend yesterday on the phone that like I got to a point, and I still sort of live this way, where if things are coming at me that are tough or difficult, I literally will say, is it going to kill me? Oh no, I'm perfect. I'll do it. Like that's the qualifier. Will
Yeah.
I die? No? All right. I can do it then. Whatever. So yeah, like it teaches a lot of those really great lessons, and you do that by like, at least for me, it was like making eye contact with an experience that's coming up for me, whether it's a grueling race, or it's a crazy storm that I got to go run dog team through, or whatever it is, you see it coming, and then you're scared and you go do it, and you come out the other side and you're fine. And you do that enough times and you like build up a callus to those situations and a bit of a toughness and a ruggedness that I can now, being down here in Tennessee, I can sort of feel myself losing a little bit of that
Yeah,
edge.
yeah. Yeah, you said
So
you kind of reacclimated to being more in the South, I guess, and
yeah, I've softened up a little bit since then, but that's why that's why I got to be even extra diligent about staying hard.
doing some stuff that's a little difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
So during that time, did you like take people on trips with this thing? Like I don't even know anything about like the whole dog sledding thing. Is there like a whole industry where people are like doing the training of the dogs? Is it just like like you're saying, just on individuals' homesteads and they're just passionate about it? Like, how does it even work up there?
Yeah, all the above, man. All the above. There's little mom and pops, little, just a two people, just a couple that have 8 dogs, and like, they're recreational mushers, and it's a lifestyle thing, and they use them to get around in the wintertime. You got people that are just racers, and just in the race scene alone, there are sprint races where the dogs go really, really fast for like 20 miles. And then you have like what I did, which was long distance, where you're trained to go 1,000 miles or more. So, and then on top of that, you got the commercial industry. You have the people that open guide services, and those usually do pretty well. A lot of the really successful mushers that I knew, and I worked for a couple of them, all had their own guide business that was incorporated into their race structure. And people do it differently. And I participated and worked for different outfits. I would do summers in like Juneau, Alaska, where there are ice fields and glacier fields. And so there is 10 feet of snow up there all summer.
Oh wow.
So yeah, we would set up camp. We'd have 200 dogs up on this camp, and we would basically semi-permanently live on the glacier all summer.
Wow.
And rich people would show up to Juneau on those cruise ships that they like to take.
Yeah, yeah, the
And
Alaskan cruise ships. Yeah.
yep, and they'd get off and they'd go spend $600 a head to get flown up in a helicopter up to our base camp, and then we would rally them around the ice on this predetermined track that we made with the dog team, and then they'd go back down. And so that was one sort of like avenue of guiding. Another thing I did was in the springtime, right around the beginning of April, end of March, everything starts thawing out and melting. And Iditarod is the first weekend in March, and then usually it's like by the end of March, people start losing their dog trails, and you can't really run your dogs anymore. You're going through a thaw process in the whole state. But what we would do is we would get all our dogs, and at that point I was working with a guy, and between the two of us we had like 60 dogs, and we would take all of them up above the Arctic Circle, above the Brooks Range, which is the furthest north mountain range in North America, and that's where the Arctic is. And we would set up base camp there, and we would live in the Arctic for the whole month of April with the dogs, never
Oh
leaving.
wow.
It was
Wow.
crazy. And yeah, so when we did that, the first 2 weeks of April, we would usually have this. We had a partnership with a school in Scandinavia, like 17-year-olds, like teenage kids, and they would fly over and meet us out at this camp with their teacher for the first 2 weeks, and we basically run like a program for them. And they live at the camp with us. We'd take them out on dog trips. We'd teach them how to dog mush and how to train the dogs and lead the dogs and feed the dogs and take care of them and check their paws and take care of them, do the animal husbandry side of things, which is huge. And so that's the first 2 weeks. Then we'd usually get like 3 days where it was just us. That school would leave. It would just be just us, and we'd usually just do fun stuff. We'd go caribou hunting. We would just go on personal trips or whatever, or just hang out at camp and like have a good time. Do some ice fishing or whatever. And then the second week or the second 2 weeks, were like really, really expensive tourist type trips would come up. And so we'd usually have like 6 to 10 people that would come up as couples or as individuals from all over the world. And they'd come up and we'd give them like their personal 2 week sort of trip up there. And so, yeah, I mean,
Wow.
those were big money makers for sure. All that sort of dog tourism is like good money, big money.
Wow. Wow. So while you're, working with the dogs and everything, do you like really make a bond with the animals?
Yeah, I mean, I did. Most people do. Yeah, it's crucial, man. I mean, not only is it just like, at least for me, can't really speak for anybody else. It's just like that's who I am. I'm gonna bond with that animal anyway. But it is so paramount for you to have success on that dog team that you know each other very well. I mean, those dogs know me and knew me more than any human on this planet probably ever will. And vice versa. I knew those dogs like incredibly. And
Like
if
you
you
can
don't have,
kind of find their personalities between all of them in the group
oh
and
yeah,
everything.
oh dude, not just personalities. I could be living in a camp with 200 dogs, and I go to bed, I go to my tent, and I fall asleep, and a dog's barking and wakes me up at 2 in the morning, and I know which dog is barking. Like I know exactly whose bark that is, dude. I know where each dog. I know what part of their pen they shit in. I know to go to that spot if I'm going to look for poop. Like you get to know everything about them. And yeah, their personalities are all super unique. So it's like a whole little society. It's kind of
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
But if you don't have that bond with them, the reason you're building that bond is because out on the trail, you're gonna come across crazy stuff, man. You're gonna get stuck in a storm in the middle of the night and you can't see anything. Or you're gonna come across the Yukon River and it's wide open and you gotta get across it. And so to get across it, you're all gonna get wet.
Yeah.
And so there are these obstacles you're gonna come across. That bond, that's what that's for. That's
Like
like an
the
insurance. It's like
like
an
the
insurance policy for getting through the tough stuff.
like are the dogs kind of looking to you as kind of like their leader, their alpha kind of dog or whatever?
100%. One of the most common questions I ever got on any of my tours, like friends or family that asked me, they're like, "Well, who's the alpha dog?" And I always say, "I was,"
Yeah.
which is like a joke, but it's not. Like that's the pecking order, and they
That's
all
how
play
dogs
the
operate, right? They have the
yeah.
alpha.
And if they don't, they all fight amongst themselves, and it turns into chaos and anarchy. Just kidding. That's what we like. But um, but yeah, you sort of got to be in charge, and they know how you're feeling. Like if I'm in the back of a dog team driving, and I got my sled in front of me, and in front of my sled I got a team of 12, 14 dogs out in front of me. Like I always visualize it like there's an energy system that flows and ebbs from back to forth that goes through that dog team. And so energy I have, it's like making its way up to the leaders. And anything they're feeling, like I can feel it too. And it's subtle. That doesn't need to be communicated or verbal. It's if I'm sad and I'm sitting on that back of the sled and I'm just like mopey, dude, they know.
They feel
For
it.
sure they know. And if any of those dogs is acting weird in any way, which isn't really easy to articulate or tell you how I'm noticing it or how it's manifesting, but it is, I know immediately. So, which is also essential. You got to have that because when you're out there and it's like, oh, it's been 4 days since I've slept. It's cold and it's dark and I'm out here. Like that's when you just kind of fall back on just knowing. Then you don't have to worry. Like I can't imagine if you ever had to jump on a dog team you didn't know, which some people do. There are like rich people that will pay a dog musher up in Alaska like $100,000, and these people will fly from down here
Wow.
up to there, work with the dogs for a handful of times. They'll get on that dog team for the races to qualify, and they'll do that, and then they'll come back to the lower 48, and then come back up for the Iditarod, and they'll run it, and they're posers. It's whatever. It's still cool and stuff, like whatever, but they're
Yeah.
not getting that bond. So they're not going to be super successful at it.
Yeah, so yeah, that's wild, man. Just you talking about that, it's almost like being completely connected into the natural world, like in so that brings me to a question that I was really thinking about. It might be a good segue
Cool.
into our, kind of your journey into going more into the, kind of libertarianism. But while you're on that dog sled, I'm sure you're thinking about all kinds of stuff. Like you're thinking, you know, maybe what's the meaning to all this? What's going on? Like, did you go down any rabbit holes while you were up there doing that? Were there some things that like led you to a point of like kind of questioning the system that we're living in? Like, because I imagine going up there, you're kind of like they say, Alaska's the last frontier or whatever. It's where people seeking freedom can truly find it or whatever. It's because like a lot of people go up to there to look for that.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm sorry. Say your question again.
so I was just saying,
Oh,
it's
now I
like,
got you.
what were?
No,
Did
no,
you have
no,
any
now I got
rabbit
you.
holes that you went
Yeah,
down while you were on that
yeah,
dog sled and you had all that time thinking about
yeah.
things and
Yeah, so like that experience is unique in a lot of ways, but one of them is like the ability for you to introspect. And I thought about that. I thought about that a lot when I was up there doing this, but you are alone other than your dogs. You're on a dog sled every day for 6 hours at least, and a lot of times for days at a time. And it's just all this time to wander. And the level of introspection you get and the ability to just kind of like dive into your mind and have the weirdest thoughts pop up and dissect them all and think about just the weirdest stuff was like invaluable. It's like it's crazy how I can't think of any other job that allows for something like that. So everybody's too busy. There's too much stuff going on. There's too much like stimulus in the world and too many Twitters and stuff like that. So you get away from that and you really have a chance to learn about yourself like big time. I feel really comfortable about knowing who I am, probably just because of that stuff.
yeah,
But as far as like thinking about the machine that lords over us, I don't. That came a little bit earlier for me. That remember when I told you that
yeah,
I got in trouble in college and I had to go home.
yeah.
That's when that took root for me.
Okay.
Um, because I went back home and like had all these cans open up for me that threw me down that rabbit hole.
Ah, okay. So yeah, your encounter with the system at that time, kind of like
Nah, dude,
the
no,
run
I
in
think
with the system. I guess was that kind of like what made you start to question some things?
no, man. I wish that was. That'd be an even cooler story. But I think it's just correlated. But no, I got in trouble. I had to go back home, and because I was home and none of my friends were home, um, I had a little bit of time to just sort of read some stuff, look into some stuff.
Hmm.
And at the time, I was like an Obama fan. This was like '07 or something, '08,
Yeah.
and I didn't know anything. I wasn't like I wasn't hip, dude. Like I didn't. I just had an opinion because I thought I had to have one or something.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I like Obama. He's cool. He's trendy. And at least at the time, I was anti-war, which I still am. That is my biggest passion on this side of things is the war side of things.
Yeah.
And at least even back then, that was around. And so I had thought he was anti-war, right? And so I tacitly liked that guy. And then I remember he got elected and he did some sort of he ended up doing that troop surge in Afghanistan, I think in 2008 or nine, where he sent like 70,000 troops over there.
Yeah.
And before he did that, he came out and gave an address, I think at West Point. And I think he had like all the West Point kids in the audience. I remember that. And he was like, we're going to, we're going to send even more people over there. And I remember watching that and being like, okay, no way. Like this guy's definitely not doing what he said. And that sent me down the whole thing. That was the incident. That was really, if I really think about it, that was my first red pill that I ate
Ah.
was him doing that and me having other expectations.
Ah.
So yeah, that pushed me around, man. That pushed me to Ron Paul ultimately and getting super involved in that.
Oh wow. So okay. So you kind of started that part of looking into like the political system and all that kind of stuff. And Ron Paul, before you went off and did the
Yeah.
thing out in the wilderness in Alaska and doing the dog
Yeah.
sledding stuff.
Yeah. I carried. By the time I got to Alaska, I was already an anarchist.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah. By the time I got up there, had already taken that dive. So, but as you know, and as probably people that are going to see this know, there's a progression to that philosophy that everybody has to go through, and
Yeah.
probably not everybody. I was thinking about this the other day. That if you like grow up in a family that's like freedom minded and liberty loving, and you're living on a homestead, you're gonna grow up and that's your paradigm. But like for most of us, man, that ain't it. Like you have to break a condition that has
Yeah.
been laid over you, and it is a process, and it's an intentional process. Like at least that's the way mine has developed. Like it's not by accident. It's not like it's not organic in the sense that I just went to work and then I decided that I liked the non-aggression principle one day. Like no, dude, I was like really looking into things and like reading things and then going off and branching off in this direction and was just inherently passionate about it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I probably developed quicker than a lot of people do,
Yeah.
or got to where I am now probably quicker than most people do. But um, I can remember like there's a rant that's still on YouTube by this guy named Rick Santelli, and
Yeah, I
he
saw that. Yeah, you
did
sent
I
that
send
to
that to
me.
you?
Yeah, you sent that to me. Yeah, what
Yeah,
he was on the what are they, Chicago trading floor or something like
yeah.
that.
Did you watch that video?
Yeah, I watched that video. Yeah.
That dude gets you jacked up, doesn't he?
He was fired up, dude. Yeah, he was
Yeah,
like, "We need to start a new thing here." And it's like, "Screw
yeah,
these guys bailing out all these big bankers. Like this is ridiculous."
yeah. He like goes off on this rant, and then he's like he's basically doing an interview. He's working at the stock exchange or whatever in Chicago, and the MSNBC or whatever people are like logged in and talking to him and stuff. And he goes off on this great rant, and everyone's like, yeah. And then the CNBC person's like, oh, they're just like putty in your hands. And the Rick guy's like, they're not like putty in my hands. This is America. And he turns around and he's like, how many people want to pay for your neighbor's mortgage
Yeah.
who can't afford it and took out an extra loan or whatever? And everybody was like, boo. And I remember watching that. He was like, any of you capitalists out there that want to like do something about this, I'm setting up a tea party and we're meeting and all this kind of stuff. And so I was like, oh my God, dude, that guy's awesome.
Yeah.
And he led me. That I think the fact that he said Tea Party is probably what like led me to the Ron Paul thing, because Ron Paul was pretty closely tied to the Tea Party movement back in those early days of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, that was kind of, I guess, similar to my origins a bit. Was like getting into the Tea Party thing and like going kind of the conservative, then libertarian, and then going into the voluntarism, anarchism, um, and all that realm, you know.
yeah,
And it was just one book that kind of put me over the edge. Was like The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose.
yeah. I know it.
That basically pushed me over the edge, and like it was
Do you
that
remember what year that was for you?
that
If you had to think about that year.
uh it must have been right after I finished college in like 2009.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so Larkin Rose for me signifies like 2011, I think, like that around that era for sure. That he was like part of my jump towards the more voluntarist, agorism, anarchist side of things, for sure. And in fact, at that same time you might remember this guy who's like now been kind of outed or is on the outside of the realm, but Stefan Molyneux.
Yeah, yeah, I was listening to him a lot, yeah.
Yeah, that guy also.
Especially his peaceful parenting stuff.
Yeah, yeah, he did some good stuff early on in the days.
Yeah,
I think he's gone kind of a little a little white supremacy or something weird. So I think he's fallen out with a lot of the liberty groups. But
I just remember him saying, like, I think he was singing the Star Spangled Banner or something like that when Trump got elected or something like that. And he was
oh,
like,
okay.
he
Oh,
kind
he
of,
was a Trumper.
yeah, and, you know, he was always talking about anarchism and, you know, not need, you know, looking for leaders or whatever. And it was like, all of a sudden he's like worshiping, well, you're not worshiping him, but he's like all about, you know, some leader, you know, gonna save the day or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, a lot of people that were hearing his message were like, this is really inconsistent with the message that you're talking about. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
man, I was listening to Stefan Molyneux like a lot.
hmm Yeah. I carried that stuff to Alaska with me, like I said, but like I got in trouble, went back, sort of had my red pills that I ate. And so after that year, I went back to college and I like brought all this energy with me, right? I like had this new philosophy that I didn't know existed before. And I brought that back to the university with me. And I started a student organization on that campus. It was a chapter of the Young Americans for Liberty,
Oh
which
yeah,
is which is associated with Campaign for Liberty, which was like a Ron Paul thing. I'm pretty
right.
sure, or at
Yeah,
least
yeah,
they
yeah.
were
It
like
was part.
loosely
I
loosely
think.
affiliated.
Yeah, I think it was part of like his. It kind of evolved out of his run
Right.
for president. Yeah.
hmm So yeah, I like started that on my campus. I for a semester or two, I was like the Illinois state chair for that organization
Oh wow.
and helping all the other campuses get started and get moving on getting groups together and organizing themselves. And and if I can like reverse a little bit, before I had gone back to school, um, I was organizing like anti-Federal Reserve rallies downtown in Chicago by myself and like with the help of
Wow.
a few
Nice.
people and like anti-war stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of always been a thing for me. I don't know why. It just gets me going. Like not just the liberty stuff, but also organizing people around it and trying to share my passion and find the other people that are into that and actually doing something about it,
Yeah.
other than read books and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like started that group on college campus, had a great time. Um, and then honestly, like it's probably this way for you too. It's not like your Liberty ride isn't just like a straight line up. Like you're passionate, and then like maybe you get frustrated for a little bit, and then there's like this other thing that comes along, and so it's like a bumpy plateau sort of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I lost that a little bit. I think probably during my Wilderness Alaska stuff. Not that I stopped believing in it or whatever, but I was so isolated and
Yeah.
living in the middle of nowhere and like didn't have the outlet to be able to find like-minded people around me,
Right.
So those are like kind of the dark ages for me if it comes to like the liberty side of things. Um,
Were you
but
talking to other dog musher people about some of those ideas, or was it
not
kind
even,
of
man.
just like in the back of your mind? You were just
Just in
kind
the
of,
back of my mind, listening to, downloading and listening to podcasts when I had service to do so and stuff like that. And I mean, that was definitely like developing a more hardcore small L libertarian mindset at that point. And, listening to, if anybody's heard of the Freedom Fiends, they were like a big part of that stuff. Seeds of Liberty was another old antiquated show now that doesn't exist, but for me, it was like a big part of my life back then, listening to those guys. Um, and then, like, kind of towards the end of my time in Alaska, um, I started trying to organize again with folks. And that was mostly because I sort of got out of the dog world. I still had a bunch of dogs, but I had worked for a number of mushers on their kennels and had saved money and wanted to buy my own property up there. So
oh
I
wow.
bought I bought 10 acres up there, and it was raw land, so it didn't have a driveway or nothing. And I moved out onto that in the spring and had that summer, which is a short building season in
Yeah.
Alaska. You don't have a whole lot of time, but
What do you got, like 2 months to get something
yeah,
done, maybe?
geez, it feels like that. It's like probably three, but it happens quick, and I put myself in a position where I like sink or swim, dude. Like if you don't get a cabin with a wood stove up in
You're
3
gonna
months,
you're gonna freeze to death.
I'm gonna. I mean, yeah, theoretically, I'd freeze to death. More likely, I'd call my mom and be like, "I gotta come home."
Hey,
You know, what am I gonna do? But
yeah.
you put yourself. At least when I do it, and I've done it a bunch of times in my life. If I put myself in that position, I usually just make it happen. And I did. I was able to get a cabin up. Had never done that before. Had never built a cabin. Like I was relatively handsy because I lived in Alaska and that was just the lifestyle. But I had no experience framing really or any of this stuff, but just figured it out along the way. Had really good friends that were knowledgeable and could help me, and I could call them and be like,
Hey,
you know,
I
how
don't.
should I make these cuts on my rafters correctly, or what roof angle should I go with? What roof pitch should I go with? Or all this kind of stuff, whatever. And they all helped me out. But got it in, and I remember getting that wood stove installed in like the perfect time. It was like I think the next day it like snowed for the first time and it got really cold.
Oh
And I was like,
wow.
God damn. So just like by the skin of my teeth, dude. But
Wow. So what size cabin did you build?
what size?
Yeah.
Small little guy, man. It was 12 by 16. I had built it to be like modular relatively, so I could build on top, if I could build onto it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you could keep adding to it.
I had a couple doorways and entrances in just that little space so that I could expand. But it was just a little mono pitch. It was just a single pitch roof system that I ended up going with. And I had a little loft that I installed in there, and I'd sleep up in the loft. Um, but yeah, dry cabin, no electricity, no running water, which was I was a veteran at that point. That was how all of my lifestyle had been for 7, 8 years before that. So it wasn't anything. It wasn't like I was getting into something I wasn't familiar with.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I sort of did that and stepped away from the dog racing scene and found like kind of a normal job. I was painting houses and stuff. And my property was still pretty remote, but I lived like 40 minutes from Fairbanks,
Okay.
but still pretty remote because I remember my car didn't start one morning, my truck, and I had to call a tow to like come help me out. And the tow truck driver got out there and he was like, dude, I lived here my whole life. But when he showed up, he was like, man, you live way out here with the animals. I was like, I guess I do. Just a different perspective or whatever. But
Yeah.
so I was like relatively close to town and living like a more normal life, like working job and stuff like that. And tried to do a little bit of organizing of people, but found it kind of difficult. I learned lessons from that sort of organization experience that I'm sort of learning how to implement better ways now. But that fell through, came to nothing, and then I ultimately moved down to Tennessee. So.
Okay. Now, did you end up selling that property up there that you had?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was able to sell it from here, from Tennessee actually, to a friend that lived in that valley, and that was also a dog musher. And I had purchased the property because it was remote and because it was on a major trail system, which
Ah.
are the highways and byways of Alaska come wintertime, which is very much most of the year. So
So is
you're
it
right on it.
so is
You're
it
right on the
just
trail. So
dog
if you have a
sleds
dog
or
team, snowmobiles too, or we called them snow machines. The natives up there called them snow goes. Yeah, a lot of snow machine activity, snowmobiles. But you can run your dog team to any location in Alaska in the wintertime. The network of trails is incredible. I mean, you could go anywhere. I had a bunch of friends that were dog mushers and racers that would live 200-300 miles from the start of the race, and they would run their dogs from home to the race, and then they would race them, and then they would run their dogs back home from the race. So
Wow.
yeah, you can get anywhere you want.
Wow, that's super neat, man.
Can I ask you a question, Greg? Can we
Yeah.
can we do a bathroom break?
Yeah, that's
Can
good.
I go to the bathroom and like you just hold it down for a little bit or something?
Yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
I'll be back.
Yeah. Well, yeah, guys. Wow, it was like, yeah, when we and Tim were talking to each other, walking into the Self Reliance Festival, it was just like hearing this story about this life that he went on and the journey he went on. Like a lot of it is kind of following some of your intuition in life, and when something's not feeling right, like it's from listening to him speak and talk about his story, it's like sometimes I think that there's going into like maybe more of a spiritual aspect here, but maybe um, that you're being called to do something different, and I think if we ignore that calling a lot of times, maybe that's where a lot of the um, maybe like the feelings of depression, anxiety, things like that can creep in, is because like I feel like maybe internally that maybe you're being called for something, and maybe you're ignoring that call to go do something, and that can kind of lead you down maybe a path of sadness. So, so yeah, I was just saying that like you followed your intuition on going down this path, and it kind of led you to like all these interesting experiences, and having like all this growth from it, and just saying that maybe if you ignore that, maybe that's where some of the like depression feelings, like anxiety kind of things can pop up, is like maybe that you're being called to do something different, and you're ignoring that, and it's kind of eating you up because you know that you should be
Yeah,
doing something else.
yeah, yeah, man. I mean, it's a driver for me, I'd say. I mean, if I'm like super candid and honest with you and everybody, the whole Alaska thing wasn't one of the big reasons I left and like didn't go back was because it really wasn't what I think I wanted.
Hmm.
And I think that it's not the two things can exist together where something is really exciting and great for you, but not necessarily what you should be doing.
Hmm.
And I think when I speak honestly to myself about my experience up there, it was like I wanted to want it more than I really wanted it. And
Hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense, but to me it makes sense. But it wasn't like an inherently natural thing inside of me that said you want to be a dog musher. It was more like, wow, look how awesome and extreme and cool that activity is. I should want to do that.
Hmm.
I should go do that, and because it's crazy and awesome. So, um, but I have done a lot of stuff like that as far as making weird life decisions, and it helps that I don't have kids and I'm not married, and I can pack up my things and make crazy life decisions
Yeah.
in one way or the other.
So
But you know,
so so to maybe segue from this, like, so you came back from that, like you said that maybe you wanted it more than you really wanted it or whatever,
yeah,
but but I'm sure a lot of that experience is because now you're an entrepreneur, right? In Tennessee, you moved to Tennessee, and you run your own business. Like, do you feel like a lot of that experience has helped you with getting this business started? Was it scary for you to get that started, or did you just say, "Hey, I'm doing this, and I'm just gonna go after it"?
yeah, it definitely probably contributes. I mean, um, the I've never I've never really liked working for other people. Um,
Yeah.
even if they're best friends of mine or like great people, and there's something I just don't like about somebody sort of making my schedule, telling me what to do, all that kind of stuff. and like I said, it doesn't matter who that person is or what type of person they are. Like I've worked for people that I love and that I think are such great people, and it's nothing against them. My When I first got to Tennessee, I landed a great job running a bunch of like basically running a paint crew for them and run their paint projects, um, which was awesome. And I had a bunch of leadership chances and opportunities, and doing all kinds of stuff. But ultimately, I wanted to do it on my own. And I sort
Mm.
of saw that and I was like, okay, I'm basically already planning these projects and
Yeah.
I'm running a crew myself. Like I can do this.
Yeah.
And I still love that guy and I still talk to that guy who ran that company. And I remember when I wanted to leave, I was like super emotional about telling him I'm leaving. I was like, because I don't like letting people down, dude. Like I hate letting people down. And I knew it would. Like I knew he was pretty stoked to have me and wanted me to like develop the paint side of his company with him and stuff. But I remember calling him and just breaking it down for him about why I needed to branch off and go my own way. And he was, and of course I'm like a naturally an anxious person, and so of course I was like going into this phone call with this guy like sweating bullets, just
Sweating
like
it.
not wanting to make that phone call, man. But like, I remember making the phone call and telling him, and he was just supportive. He was like,
Hmm.
"I get it, man. I get it. Like, don't worry about it, dude. You do your thing. We're still buddies and all that, you know." So that was awesome. And I didn't even really have a plan at that point. I was teetering on the idea of doing my own paint business, but I hadn't really made up my mind. I kind of like floated around for a little bit and just had fun and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but but yeah, then I just decided one day I was like, I'm going to start my own painting business. I don't know how that goes or how I should approach it, but it can't be that hard. Like if I can do all these other things, I can definitely paint houses and get people to like me and get some clients and all that. And it's been pretty great. It's been pretty successful. And I do houses and cabinets all around the Nashville area at this point. And I, you know, I'm probably not the best business minded person. Like, please don't ask me any super business related questions because like I'm decent with people
Yeah.
and I can do a really good job and I'm detailed and I care a lot about the work I do. But like the
Yeah.
business side of things, I probably suck. But I don't do any advertising. Like I have an Instagram and Facebook, but like I don't give them the attention that most people do. And but all my jobs are just word of mouth. And I do one job for somebody, and usually I go back and end up doing more work for them, or they tell their neighbor or their friend or whatever, and then I'm painting their house. And now I'm painting like 6 houses that all touch each other.
Yeah.
Um, and I've also been able to form relationships with some, I don't know if you call them like general contractor types, but the type of people that get like big remodel type jobs
Yeah.
that don't want to do the paint side of that
Oh yeah,
job.
and they'll sub it over to you.
And they'll sub it to me and they'll just call me and be like, hey, I got this job. Can you do it? So between like my original sort of client base and getting references from them and getting callbacks from them, I'm also sourcing jobs through these contractors that are that I've met along the way in different ways. You know, some of them are people I've met in martial arts class, and other people are people that I knew when I first got to town. So I feel really lucky that when I did land in Tennessee, I landed in like a pretty great group of people pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And some of those people were handymen and in general sort of contractor types. So
Wow.
um,
So do you run a crew or is it just you?
just me, super streamlined, super slick. Every once in a while, I'll hire a friend or two to come help me out on stuff.
Like if it's a
Um,
bigger job that you might need an
yeah,
extra hand for.
yeah. And I tell people too. I mean, I tell all the people I go do bids or estimates for that it's just me. Job's going to take longer. I'm not one of those crews that's going to pump in 5 guys and we're going to be able to paint your entire exterior house in 2 days. It's going to take me all week and probably bleed into next week, but I'm going to be the one doing it and it's going to look really good and it's going to last a really long time. Um, so they know that, I don't, and some people are, some people have time stuff they're like, I need it done in 3 days. Like my family's coming over or something. But yeah, no crew. Honestly, don't have any plans for it really in the future. Things are pretty good for me right now
Just kind
and
of just
uncomplicated. And, you know,
just
it's nice.
just might
I'm
bring
like,
somebody over to help here and there if you need it.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's, I mean, and the lifestyle it's been able to afford me is my favorite thing about it. It's, to working for myself and setting my own schedule and just taking care of all this stuff just on my end. It's probably more stress. It is. It's more stress. It's more anxiety. Because it's my name and it's my life and it's my economics that are involved. And I don't just get to show up at 9 o'clock, do my job, leave at 5, and then not think about it till the next morning.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah,
work that way when you own your own business. It's all day.
yeah.
Um, so that adds stress and anxiety, but man, it makes me feel really good. Like to go like tackle a big job and like make the customer happy and realize like, wow, like I did that just by myself, right? Like that is such an empowering feeling to be like, I went and made all this money in that amount of time just by myself. I found
Yeah.
these people or they found me and we liked each other enough to want to trade resources and now I can live, you know. It's actually a beautiful thing when you really think about it, the whole economics of everything. You
Well,
work for
free
yourself
free
and
market economics. Yeah.
yeah, dude. It's great, man. I like it. I like it for now, but I'm always sort of searching for stuff to get better at and like skill development and like learning new things. So I'm not gonna be a painter my whole life probably, but um, it's serving me really well right now. So
Very cool, man. So we were talking a little bit about this before coming on, and just talking about community because, like, I've been down that road where I tried going off grid and being the lone wolf kind of guy, doing everything on my own and thinking like, all right, I want to be, the rugged individualist, doing everything on my own. Set up all the solar power, doing all that stuff, living in a camper, developing the homestead, planting trees, planting all these perennials, and doing all that, and then kind of, at a certain point, it was just like, um, number one, I needed to make money, and didn't really have like a solid way of doing that. I was just kind of picking up jobs here and there as I could. And then number two, uh, not being around anybody really started to mess with me. And having other people that you might be able to call to like come help you with something, or like you said, like you had somebody you could call, be like, hey, I'm working on this. What do you think about this? I started to realize that like I need that. I need like to have other people around and have some kind of community. And if things get really bad, like I want to be surrounded with more people that like are those kind of get things done type people, and want to work together. Um, and I think that's like a little bit tough, like, cause like in the voluntarist community, we're all such individualists that we're all trying to do a lot of our own thing, that maybe it's a little bit harder to get people together and like work together. So maybe if you want to talk about a little bit about like your experiences on like what worked or what didn't work when you're trying to get people together to do something.
yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy for all the reasons you just stated for sure. Um, yeah, we're all super individualistic, and that's also kind of how it was in Alaska. Even if they weren't friggin' anarchists or libertarians, people are just like individuals. So it's tough, man. And one of the things I've actually been thinking about is like I run across that word self-reliant, or that concept of self-reliant, right? Like we went to the Self Reliance Fest, we met there, and that word's sort of thrown around in our circles a lot. And I get it. I know what it means and I believe in it. But part of me is also like, kind of wish there was another phrase that incorporated the individual into the community a little bit better than self-reliance, because we're not self-reliant at all. We can't be. Like it's just not only do I not want to be, I don't think it works. And I tried the lone wolf thing, man. I went and bought property in the middle of nowhere and had no plans to have a community at all. You know, didn't
Yeah.
work out. But I also just don't want that. Like I realized through that experience of doing the lone wolf thing and being isolated and living in Alaska and not having a whole bunch of friends at all and no family up there at all, that I didn't want that. But I had to go through that experience to learn that for myself, big time. So um, it ain't easy, and that's a big journey I'm on right now, is the whole community vibe and getting people organized and networking and really doing the shaking hands and trying to find like-minded people. And because I think it is one of the most important preps that any of us can do, is find those people. It's almost a prerequisite, I think. It's like I'd rather focus on that and have that than start storing food in my garage or whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be a list of priorities that are set, and everybody's different. So you're gonna sit down with your notebook and your pen and like write down what your priorities are, and they're gonna be different than mine, and all that kind of stuff. It's stuff that you value is different than mine. But if we're not all trying to find that community, which can those different communities, like your community and my community, might operate differently or have different priorities or specialize in different things,
Yeah.
but we can still be allies and friends and help each other and learn from each other and all that kind of stuff.
Trade with each other. Yeah.
Yep. And it's not a one size fits all. So I'm working through it now, to be honest with you, as far as how to really do it well. But um, you got to be willing to go talk to people.
Yeah.
And you have to be the type of man, if you're not the type of person that's going to go approach a stranger, then it's going to be a lot more difficult for you. And
Right.
you were saying you're more of like the introverted type, and you were able to get it accomplished, but you also probably had to kind of force yourself to do a lot of stuff and like really um your desire to have community has to be higher than your fear of people. Like
Yeah.
the one thing has to be way higher depending on how antisocial the person is or whatever, but there are a lot of people out there that think like you and I do, and that run along these same lines of homesteading and preparedness and liberty and community and all this stuff. There's a lot of people out there that fit in those categories that are not outgoing.
Yeah.
And I've been really stewing in my head a lot about like their perspective the last week or two, about how difficult that must be and what it really takes. And maybe it takes like the one type of person in that general area community to rally the folks, because like there's probably, you could have like 20 people around you in 10 miles within you, but if none of those people are the type that are going to go out and start anything, you might never find out that each other exist. And all it really takes is like
Yeah.
the one person to like put the boot work down and like go out and try to find the people, and then, hey, what time can we meet? Does Wednesday work at 8 o'clock? And like take that initiative to get that thing going. And I'm pretty convinced that once that gets going, it's a momentum thing. You could
Yeah.
get those 20 people together, and wow, now we know each other. I didn't know you existed. Oh my God, you live down the street, yada yada. You got chickens, I got this stuff, whatever. And then then it just sort of might organically happen or whatever. But point being, it requires, I think, somebody to be kind of the go-getter. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I think like that Self Reliance Festival we met at tends to attract a lot more like of a go-getter type. I would think that the people that are going to show up to that are the type that are willing to talk to strangers and talk to other people. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, they took the action to go show up there.
Yeah.
So they're either interested in doing that or they're wanting to go and improve themselves by learning the things that they're going to learn there. So
Yeah.
I would say yes. Those are the and if not, everyone has that in them to be the person, to be the leader in
Hmm.
their little group and put yourself out there. And
Hmm.
if nobody shows up, then
Ah.
you just keep trying. I mean, it's it that's how I was reluctantly the guy to do that to put my name on the map. And I used the Freedom Cell network to get that
Yeah.
kicked off with, and just put my name and my contact, a way to contact me on that Freedom Cell site. And then there was one guy, one I had one response, and that one response led to a face-to-face meeting at a local bar. And then from there, you know they invited the people that they thought might be interested in the thing. And then I started inviting some people that I thought might be interested in the thing. And then from there, it's just started to grow. Like, their people talk to other people that might have been interested in doing the thing. And so, all of a sudden, we start meeting at this same bar on a weekly basis, and all getting to talk to each other. And then you know you get some people that are regularly meeting on a monthly basis, uh, and just having the ability to talk about just like what you're talking about is like, um, who's got this? Like, I'm growing this on my land, and like I'm doing this over here. We found, one of the ladies is really good at finding deals for things, so she's like the deal person in the group. And then like we've got one guy that's raising cattle, and he's got the grass fed beef that he's doing, and so like people are buying beef from him. One of the guys is like super intelligent on like solar power stuff, and like go talk to him if you want to do any of that. And then so there's like all these things where we're all kind of helping each other out with different things and different aspects of stuff. But yeah, it just came from going out and putting a contact out there and putting the idea out there, and reluctantly being the guy to do it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to, I'm not really the guy to really organize people, really. But I've kind of figured out, whatever we're doing is kind of working. And I picked up stuff from other people that have done the group thing too, as well, and listened a lot to uh, Sean Mills, who's in our group. He has a Hack My Homestead channel, and he was involved with Nicole Sauce's group up there in Tennessee. And so we got a lot of ideas from them too.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah,
It's gonna
man,
it's gonna look different for everybody
it
too,
is. It's gonna look different
and
for everybody.
it's also can be confusing in the beginning if you don't have any ideas about structure or priorities or what exactly you want to get accomplished. And I think a lot of that can be alleviated by like first starting with yourself and sit down with a piece of paper and write down what your priorities are and write down exactly what values you have, and then maybe even prioritize those values if you're trying to find certain types of people, and and what you want the structure to look like. How do you want it to function? Do you want it to just be a like an agora, like a product swap sort of a thing? Do you want to, is it a ride or die crew? Is it a freaking boogaloo crew of riflemen that can all back each other up? Is it just a group of homesteaders that come together and share knowledge or labor or experience on that? So I think before you got to get involved in it and try to find folks, you got to like figure out for yourself what you're going for and what exactly is your priority. And everybody's doing it in different ways, and that's the beautiful thing about what's going on right now is everybody's sort of experimenting in different ways. But my biggest thing is like you got to just start and you got to do it, and you'll
Yeah.
figure it out. You'll figure it out, and especially you get just a couple people on board, and then you get 5 people on board. Now you got 10 people. The 10 of you will figure it out.
And in fact, if you can get 10 people, that's a great group size, actually. I mean, once it does get really, I mean, if it, once it gets to a certain point, I believe, like, then it starts to, it can kind of like get uncohesive. So, like, I found that, maybe we have like 20 people show up for a meeting, but like the people that are like, um, you know, willing to come out and help with like mutual aid projects and things like that, that number is a lot smaller. So, I kind of feel like, that's kind of a way to figure out who is who a little bit, as well as like incorporating some kind of mutual aid efforts into the group. Might be a way to like figure out, according to your values or whatever, who are the people that you want in that kind of maybe like the core group or whatever.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that part too about the core group, because I really think that the way it's going to work for all of us in this liberty space is to stop thinking about it as I'm building one community. I'm developing like one little crew, because the reality is the way that it's going to successfully manifest for us all is if you have basically circles within circles within circles, and you have the general public is the big basically batch that you pick from.
Yep.
And in that general public, you have friendlies and you have naughties, and among those friendlies, it's a wide spectrum, dude. You got, at least from where I'm coming from and probably where you're coming from, that is going to range anywhere from like your hardcore anarchist down to, depending on how tolerable you are, maybe someone that votes for Trump, right? Wherever that might go, but that's a big sort of a thing. And that's your, I've heard a guy, I've been listening to a podcast series lately, and they talk a lot about this stuff, and they refer to that as what they call the mind. And the mind is the general group of people that are like-minded, like you, right? And they're not necessarily local. It's everybody. It's all the people that show up to SRF. It's all the people that want to be free and get out on the land and take a little bit of their freedom back. So, and then from there, you have more of a local scene, and you have all the people that think that way, maybe in your county. And that's a different structure and a different organization. And then zoom in even further, and now you have like whatever you want to call it, your tribe or your group or whatever. Maybe that's, like you said, 6 to 10 people. And so for each layer and level of that structure, you're going to have a different set of values and priorities, maybe. And they're going to become different levels of like seriousness, I guess, like the people that I want to be in my group, the people that like when Red Dawn happens,
chaos everywhere, yeah,
whatever, when that actually happens, however it manifests, that small group are the people that I'm bleeding for, and that I'm feeding, and I'm letting them come to my house, and I trust them enough. And that's a long process to get to that point. I get it. But that crew is different than just the mind, right? And
yep.
you can go even smaller than that, man. Even smaller than that tribe is like if you have a family, you have a wife and some kids or something, but you and I don't. So we're a little. It's easier for us to focus our energy on our tribe,
right?
Way more so than somebody that's got a family, and maybe that family isn't sympathetic. Now, what do they do? What is the guy or the gal that really thinks the way we do and has those desires to find that sort of a community, but maybe their spouse doesn't? Like, man,
that's a tough situation. Yeah.
What an interesting dance that you're going to have to go through there. You're going to, what are you going to do? Give up yourself? Give up your own thoughts? I don't know. But yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm currently doing a lot of work and trying pretty hard to dip into that mind, which is like the overall like-minded group of folks, and try to basically mine them from the local area in a bunch of different ways. Yeah. Whether it's going to these festivals or finding them on social media, or just meeting them and going to the farmers markets or going and seeing like people at the gun range or whatever, however you want to source those people, and getting them together. And what I'm finding is that there are a lot of people that think this way, that haven't themselves gone about organizing anything, but they are super in. They're they like there's I'll make like one post on Facebook in like a permaculture group, like a
Yeah.
local permaculture group or like a local homesteading group, and I'll get like 20 or 30 people that will comment on that thing, and they'll be like, "I'm in. Where are you at? Let's go. I'm ready to meet," and all this stuff. So the energy is there. The organization isn't there yet.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's good, man. That's good to hear. I have been talking about this for a long time on the show. Is like, you know, don't be afraid to, like, if nobody's doing it in your area, be the person. Just be the person to do it, and then just pick a time, pick a place, tell
Hmm.
everybody, hey, go into this bar or whatever on Wednesday night. If anybody wants to show up and have a meetup, come on out and we'll talk some liberty, some agorism, some homesteading, and you know, figure out what we're doing.
Yeah, and I don't think that you have to be too picky the further up that ladder you go. I think you need to be really picky when it comes to who is in your close knit tribe. And I mean, it's like dating people. Like you're going through the same courting process when it comes to those people. But the maybe the next layer up, just all the people that like live in the county or whatever, you don't need to super get along with everything that they think and vice versa. But yeah, as long as you're out there making those moves, but it ain't easy, and it takes. It's easy for me because that's what I care about, dude. It's like I wake up and I can't help it. That's what I want to do. That's what my mind is on. It like makes me feel like a piece of shit if I'm not out there trying to find people and organize people. Like it adds to my anxiety level if I don't do that. So
Mm,
like I need to do that. It's really like feels like a calling and like a path for me is to find that group. Also just because I think it's so important. Because I think that when it's all said and done and Yellowstone erupts or whatever happens, I'm not making it by myself. It
nah.
just it just will not work out. And it'll be hard enough if I have a freaking solid group of people around me, but by myself, I'm done. And and the best thing about it for me, and hopefully maybe for you, is I don't even care if Yellowstone doesn't erupt or the Russians invade. I'm doing all this stuff because it's just what I want to do. If
Yeah.
if nothing ever happened, if the economy never tanks and the dollar stays around forever and we get our purchasing power back and all the wars end, I'm still gonna do this because that's what I want to do and it's cool. And I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, man.
So yeah,
Yeah, same here. It's like just having that group of folks that I can go to and we can talk about stuff, we can talk about ideas. We were talking about one of the guys in our group was talking about a new type of uh, non-mixing redox flow battery, and I was like, this is blowing my mind because he was like, basically, he's a NASA dude that's like a NASA scientist guy. And he was like, okay, if we can create this battery that these two electrolytes don't mix, then it saves you from the expensive membrane. And you might be able to do this on like a homestead scale and create a different type of battery that like people could just set up with a couple of pumps and some common materials and things that you can find. And so like meeting with these kind of guys, like I like talking about that stuff. I like talking
yeah,
about ideas on and like how we could implement them and things like that. And then real skills, even like even teaching each other, like everybody's got like their different kind of skills in niche areas and stuff, and just like having somebody come and talk about one of their skills has like taught me a ton of stuff from having our group setups. Like one of the big ones was like I had never really thought about first aid a whole lot. And then like it's super important because like what if you like really hurt yourself doing some kind of thing and you're like bleeding out and like you are in a remote place and there's like not an easy way to get to somewhere where somebody could stitch you up or whatever. You got to be ready for that. So um
Do you
this,
remember at Self Reliance Fest? Did you see the guy named Tag that presented?
yeah, man. Yeah.
So he was also at the Kentucky Sustainable Living is an organization in Kentucky, and they did a festival last weekend that I went to called the Sustainability and Preparedness Festival, and he was there too, and he talked and they, I mean, in my opinion, the way I want organization to go and how I want my tribe and my community to be, he's like a gold standard
I
right
want to
now.
talk to him about that because I feel like he has done a lot of effort in that area. And them
Yeah,
talking about getting people out and they constructed a house in what, like 3 days or something like that.
yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. They are doing it right, man. And like, go find his YouTube channel and just freaking peruse. It's called Life Done Free.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And but they're, they've been developing this for a while, so they're ahead of the game, man. But they have all the stuff going, man. They have like a whole parallel economy. He said there's like 1,100 individuals that have all moved to that area, and he was talking about how in the
Wow.
past he's been involved in community organizing around these ideas for years now, and he tried like more of a commune sort of
Style.
intentional community style thing where like resources were shared and property was shared, and it fell apart for obvious reasons. But now this thing that they've got going on is like an intentional neighborhood, they call it.
Ah.
And essentially, they just encourage and help people relocate to the general area. And
Yeah.
that's how their community is built. And so um, they got a lot of people and a lot of different energy. And so among those like 1,100 or whatever, they're not all in the same tribe. They don't all have dinner together all the time.
Yeah, no, but
It's
they're like,
decentralized.
yeah, it's like a federation almost of like-minded people.
Yeah, and I can't remember what he calls that size of group or whatever, but the point being, amongst those groups, they've been able to build these parallel systems to replace the vulnerable state-run systems that none of us like or want to be a part of. They have homeschooling networks. They have their own commerce, basically, between food and materials that people are producing and the services that they offer and the knowledge that they all bring together. And they have like basically their own medical system. He was saying that they have doctors and nurses that I don't know what they called it or whatever, but anybody,
Like a private membership association
yeah,
kind of
they
thing.
all pay like $75 a month to be part of this thing, and then their general practitioners are people in this group, and they're getting after it for sure. They're like there's something to learn from those folks for sure. They're doing it right.
Yeah, man. I want to learn from that. Yeah, because I think because it's kind of similar to what Nicole did with her group. Is like she encouraged people to kind of move around where she was,
Mm-hmm.
and just like was actively looking for properties around where she was, and then saying, okay, well, this is available if
Right.
you want to snag it up and get out here and start
Yeah.
working together.
Which is, yeah, that's what Tag does too. I've seen on, like, if you go to his YouTube channel, Life Done Free, you'll see that a lot of those videos are called like property, and he'll find property for sale, go through like do a whole video on like what the property is, how much it costs, stuff that it has on it, all that kind of stuff. And he's encouraging people to make that move and join on what's going on out there. And
I really
I think,
like that. I really like that because yes, everybody needs to have their own private property. I think, and like the problem you get with the commune style living is that when nobody owns something, nobody takes direct care of it really, And so I think it's called the tragedy of the commons in economics, is because nobody owns it and has a direct stake in it, that they don't truly care for it. And so that's how it just kind of falls apart because of that. But yeah, if you can have like people where they have all their own separate pieces of property, but they're in a vicinity of each other with like, it doesn't even have to have like a nucleus. Everybody's kind of like little pieces of this thing that operate independently.
Hmm.
That's like a decentralized community um, that
That
seems
is
like the best way. Yeah.
that's my best way. That's like my move right now. I am like full bore energy into that. And I don't necessarily know if I'm like trying to help create a new thing or if I'm going to try to find a cool group of people that have already sort of doing the thing and then like see what they got going on and maybe move by them or whatever. But that's the move, man. Like, and there it's intentional too. So unfortunately, a lot of these words that we use have all this like preconceptions with them. So if you throw the word intentional community around even most libertarians or anarchist types, they're gonna immediately be like, nope, because they have all these preconceptions. But it is what they're doing. They're all intentionally coming to this location to be a larger community, more or less. But they harp on this idea that you just said, which is sovereignty. Each individual or unit, each family has the sovereignty. They own their own property. You don't have to worry about, oh, like four of us, we all went in on this one piece of property and now, you know, Janine wants to leave. What do we do? Or something, or like,
Yeah.
hey, we're all sharing like the same amount of food or something. And just, I can't imagine ever wanting to do that. But that's the move, man. I'm excited. I'm super excited and inspired by seeing that they're out there doing that. Because for me, unless you have heard of that or know that that's an option, it's hard for your imagination to create it. And so I feel like a lot of, at least me personally, I'm sure a lot of other liberty-minded folks have this issue where like you feel like you're sort of stuck, like spinning your wheels and you're not getting anywhere and you're not sure what to do or where to go or how to get outside of theory and philosophy and actually like make moves and make it actually matter, because which is a super will like lead you down a dark path of like being black pilled and thinking, oh, it's all useless. Yeah, I think this way. I hate the government. I love freedom, but what can we really do about it? Which is understandable. Like I relate to that hardcore, but it is not the right way. And there are options for achieving real freedom right now.
Yeah.
But I don't even know how many other people really know that that's going on. And if they have never heard of it, like, you know, the best we can do is go out there and do this and like live this way and show the example
I
and get
think
that word
so.
out.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. We can talk till we're blue in the face, but I really don't think that. Yeah, I think you got to show people instead of talking about it, because people are more convinced by your actions than your words.
Yeah.
So
And yeah, you got to take the action. And I think there's a lot of people, I mean, everybody we meet at Self Reliance Fest or Kentucky Sustainable Living, they're on that path towards moves. Like they're making moves. They're networking and finding people, and they see the importance of that and the value of that big time.
yeah, and that is an important thing to think about when you go to these events. The networking is probably the more crucial part than going and listening to the speakers. To find the other people that are like-minded like you, that might be around your area, like um, that I feel is like probably the most important thing going to these things. And I've had people in our group that like, they're like, well, I don't really want to go do the SRF because like, I know a lot of the things that they're talking about or whatever. And I'm like, my intentions, going there is more geared toward that networking and finding other people kind of thing. And I think you're going to get a lot more out of it if you kind of keep that in mind.
Dude, I've been thinking about this a lot. I went to that festival last weekend, went to the SRF, so like this is hot on my mind, but that's like the only reason I'm going to continue to go to these things. And I know that now, but like um the number of people I've met just at those two events, and they don't live by me. They're not like, but it doesn't matter. Like I'm expanding my network of people. It's like you for me now and all the other people I've met. Um it adds to it. And like you said, there's like stuff here that are really interesting, and I go to all the talks, and I love the presentations. But I've told friends when I've gotten back, I'm like, it's really a networking thing for me. I'm shaking hands. I'm like trying to find human beings, and you kind of have to go and do it. And it's, there's a lot of interesting ways to do that. It can be like you and I's interaction where we laugh about something at the store, and then we're like, hey, what's up? What's your name? Haven't met you yet, or whatever.
Yeah.
But then like one of my favorite interactions that like sparks a friendship or a relationship with someone, and I thought about this last night, is like when you ever been in a moment where you're like sitting next to somebody or near somebody that you don't know, and something happens, and then the two of you sort of look at each other and a comment is made, and it's like you, and maybe only guys do this. I don't know if girls do this so much, but you basically like pretend like you've known each other the whole time. That's like that's like my favorite way to approach new people, is just go into it pretending like you already are best friends.
Yeah.
I've had that a lot of times where like you're sitting at a this happened at the Kentucky thing for me. We're like sitting at a presentation, and the guy says something, and me and this other guy sort of look at each other, and like he makes a comment like, haha, like, wasn't that funny? Or yeah, 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 yeah. And we both, I don't know this guy. We don't even know each other's names, but now we're like, yeah, dude, that was hilarious, or whatever. And that's all it takes, is like that sort of a little thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I will also say that from just going to those two events, not everybody there is super outgoing and wants to go out and meet people, but they're there anyway. I think it'd be so cool if there was like a festival around all these things that was it's marketed this way and planned that way, to where it is a networking event. And that's how all the different things are structured, and maybe all the presentations are structured about how to build community, or different ways, like the different layers of the community and how to work inside of those, and different examples. And because at least for me, like I intentionally went to those events for that, and so it was easier for me to be like, oh, that dude over there, he's doing something cool, I gotta go over there and talk to him, because that's how I look at it, and that's the way I look at things. But if you are going into it thinking, I'm just going to get some skills, or I'm going to learn about hog processing, or whatever, homestead defense, then maybe you sort of put blinders on, and maybe that sort of steers your outlook of that event, and you don't use it as much as you should for the networking purposes, which I think, and you just said, is the most important thing of those events.
Yeah, yeah, because those folks is how. So I think Nicole talked about it. I think maybe the first one. She was giving a presentation on underground networking, and if we are really serious about creating this alternative to the current system, we need to have a network of folks all around the place, and that you know we've even experienced it with the Freedom Cell group. Is just somebody traveling through and just saying, hey, I'll be traveling through on this such and such date or whatever. Has anybody got a place I could crash or whatever on my way through? And just I almost think about it like the Underground Railroad, and like guys like Derek Bros kind of talk about it that way too. Like we're kind of building this like underground network where things can still operate as the whole outside system is just, I don't even care about it. Like let it do what it do. It's gonna, tyrant's gonna tyrant, and they're gonna be doing their stuff over there. Let's go over here. Let's do something else over here, and then y'all go do whatever that silliness is. But we'll be here to pick up when that stuff goes away, because it's kind of on a it's on a train wreck kind of course or whatever right now.
Yeah, it's the difference between trying to work within the system or compete within the system versus compete with the system. And that Derek Rose guy and his buddy John Bush, who did that Freedom Cell stuff, they are always talking about how important it is to not necessarily think about trying to like convert the king and capture or even capture the king, but rather just sort of ignore the king out of existence to as best as you can and treat him like the homeless guy on the bus that's like ranting, who actually doesn't have any power inherently. You just don't
Yeah,
feed him. Don't feed him. Starve the beast and go about it that way. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean and I'm sure there's a lot of people that will think the way that we do and they, have a lot of the same thoughts and stuff, but they're still maybe tied up on the idea that they can vote their way out or they can worry about who the next president is or something like that. But they'll all get there. We're all on a different path and
yeah.
we all get there in different ways and at different stages and stuff. But I just hope not too many people are like too black pilled,
Yeah,
because
don't get black pilled. Yeah, stay away from the black pill.
it makes no sense to me. I mean, it what does that even mean? Like, okay, you're looking at a situation, it looks dire,
Yeah.
which it does, man. It's like
What are you gonna do? Give up?
I know it, but place that scenario in
Yeah.
any other thing. Like, let's say you're at home and there's like a bunch of people coming to your house and they mean to do you no good and they mean to do you harm. What are you going to be? Well, doesn't look good out there. Guess I'll just sit here and let
Guess.
it happen. Like, no, you're not like you don't have the option to be black pilled. You have to do something about it. Like you have to make moves. And that's, I mean, you got to have that mindset in the broader spectrum too, in order to be motivated to do the things you got to do. You really got to remember that there are things you can do. So I guess it's probably easier for you and I because we're still like in this community and in this world that we can see real world examples of people that are living free and are making good choices and stuff. So it's easier for us to be white pilled.
Well, I feel like if we're not optimistic, then you know that we basically admitted failure, right? We admit that we're gonna fail, so you have to remain optimistic, I believe, because that way you're pushing towards something, and I really do think that our minds have a capability of this is kind of like kind of a metaphysical woo woo. Some people would call it that, but like we have the ability to co-create reality together. And if we're always focused on that black pill, I think that helps that vision manifest itself. But if we are focused on this planting seeds, maybe the shades that of the tree that we may never rest under. That's an old kind of Greek thing, I believe. But it may never come to fruition. We may never see that vision of a humanity that we want to see. But at least we can be planting the seeds so that people can see that and carry it in, and maybe there'll be a time where that comes to a reality. So
Yeah, your mind is crucial, dude. Like everything that you know that exists, everything from the hat on your head to the technology that we're using right now was just an idea. It was just a thought, right? So like, and not only on top of that, but like if you're thinking certain ways, you're going to create that reality, like you said. So if you're all doom and gloom and things aren't going to go good, then you're going to live in that world. You're going to stew in that world, and like nothing's going to happen. So it's
yep,
so easy for us to sit here on this freaking podcast and say that though. But
yeah,
it's true. It's true. It doesn't make it any less true because it's easy for us to say right now. But,
yep.
the
Well,
internal dialogue you have with yourself is crucial. And you have like this voice in your head. At least I do. I got this like voice in my head that's always talking to me and like a lot of times trying to sabotage every little micro decision that I make in my life from should I sleep in another hour? do I really need to go to jujitsu today? Do I, maybe you don't. Maybe stay home or something. So we all have that, but you have to like be able to break through that thing
You
and
know,
out.
you know what? Yeah, at SRF, I asked a question to John Willis, and he kind of put me on the spot, and
Yeah.
told me like, well, maybe you should start with working on your physical self, like get that in order. And I will tell you, man, like I've been doing this for like 16 days straight now, just doing a workout every day and posting it to social media to stay accountable. And I'm feeling so much better. My mind has been, to where I would have kind of those thoughts. Like I'm just like sometimes I am dreading like going to do that workout, but like after I get done with it, I feel so much better, and I feel like my mind is so much clearer as well. It's almost like kind of like pulling that negativity out of my body by
Yeah.
doing the physical work.
That dread will never go away also. So get that out of your like idea right now, because it like nobody that is consistent with workout or exercise wants to do it all the time. In fact, like it is way more important that you are um God, what's the word? Motivation is not what you're looking for. You're looking for like consistency is what you're trying to go for. Because if I only like went to the gym or went to class when I wanted to, I'd like never go.
Yeah.
So I would argue that don't expect that that'll go away.
Yeah.
But you get more comfortable with it, and if you can get to a point, I'm at this point where I like will benefit and feel better by being able to like make eye contact with that little voice and be like, "Fuck you, I'm going to class."
Yeah.
I get off on it a little bit to be able to like put that thing down in its place and like get done what needs to get done, So
Yeah. Yeah, well, awesome, man. Tim, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man, and we got to do this again sometime in the future.
yeah,
I know we'll be staying connected, and maybe you'd be able to come and help us with some things that we got going on down here,
yeah,
and uh, and likewise, like to because I do travel up your way from time to time, so I'll
cool.
definitely let you know when I'm headed up that way and give you a shout. So yeah, as we leave, there any last kind of thing that you want to share with the audience as we head out for the show?
Mm, I don't know, man. I mean, it's just super important to not be atomized in this community, and I'll just like reaffirm how important I think it is to actually go out and find those people that are doing the things you want to do and living the way that you want to live, um, and seek them out. Because like I said earlier, I think it's like one of the most important preps that we can all do to become ready for what pretty much all of us think is coming down the pipe. So get out there, make connections, shake hands, and try not to just think about what people can give to you, but also go out there and try to think about what you might be able to provide to the community. Um, I'm in this space a lot for all those different reasons. It's not just like I want people to bring skills and supplies into my life, but like I'm also super motivated to help other people. I told you, I was like, let me
Yeah,
know. I'll come down and help.
yeah,
And everybody I meet, everybody at these events that I like really connect with and like we trade numbers, the day I leave the event, I'll call them or I send them a text and I say basically the same thing. I'm not like asking them to do anything for me, but I genuinely want them to know if you need anything, if you're putting a barn up or you're getting ready to like build a fence or something and you need hands and I'm an hour or two away, call me. I'll come camp out at your house and we'll get it done. So I guess that's it. That's all I got.
that's great, man. And yeah, just let me know where if you want people if they want to reach out to you or whatever, just let me know, and I'll get that put in the video description and everything. So
Cool.
thank you guys for watching. Please, leave a comment if you've got value out of this video. Like it, share it around, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Peace.